Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestler Weekly Presents. I'm your host, Scottie Richardson, back for another episode. I've got my mags ready for you, and welcome back. This is Season 4, and that's right, this is the series finale. That's right, we have made it 4 seasons. 3 years of Wrestler Weekly. That's right, it's our anniversary this month. And this is it. You know what? It's hard to believe that the very first episode, I was in Myrtle Beach, working there and lived there 4 days a week in a 1-bedroom apartment. And then I would come back to see my family on Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Raleigh. And who would have thought that with just your video, your phone and your camera and, you know, a bunch of magazines would turn into 4 seasons of this show. Man, we've had, when I look back, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey to think that, you know, being able to talk to and interview your heroes and your idols and people that you look up to in the wrestling business. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet and just talk to not only wrestlers that I grew up idolizing in my childhood, but you, the fans, being able to talk to you and message and meet. I mean, at the gathering, and being able to talk to my friends like Mike Parker and David Peck and Jeff Jewett. I mean, so many people out there to give shout outs to that I know I'm going to miss somebody, and it is what it is. But, you know, I've met so many great people. I mean, to be able to hook up with Mike Leotis, the Grand Wizard of Wrestler Weekly from New Jersey, and, you know, we just struck up a conversation, and man, we were just so cut from the same cloth as brothers, and we've just, you know, had this journey together. My brother Reggie, the doctor, who we grew up with, just talking about wrestling, seeing wrestling, going to the matches, reading the magazines, and all of those things, playing with our Star Wars and G.I. Joes as kids and turning them into wrestlers when we were banned from wrestling. If you want to know what happened and we were banned and couldn't watch, couldn't do anything wrestling related, check out my book on Amazon, Family Bacon Wrestling. You can read all about it. It's a great story. So look forward to you reading that. If you want me to sign a copy, I've done that. Send it to me. I'll sign it. I'll ship it back to you. I'll write you a little message in there, and be glad to do that for you. T-shirts. This was the first one. ProWrestlingTees.com produced, and so shout out to them. 720wrestling.com and Marvelous Mike putting out our articles. You can read those and check those out. If you want to follow us on all of our social media, at Wrestler Weekly, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, retweet, comment, give us thumbs up, give us like, share the stuff. We've got people that do that, and we're so appreciative of that. But before I get into part 3 of 3, we're getting there. Part 3 of 3, which is the double sign mags that are in my collection. I'm here at Wrestler Weekly headquarters, Raleigh, North Carolina, the home of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and Dorton Arena and WRAL Studios. And couldn't think of a better place to birth Wrestler Weekly 3 years ago. And but again, the shout outs, man, so many people. Matty Montcalm, Wrestling with Classics, check him out. He's been on the show, just a great brother and friend of ours. Mike Mooneyham was a guest. He was a reviewer on my book, as was Jim Valley and Duke from Duke Loves Wrestling. Just, again, people have come into our lives and here at Wrestler Weekly, in my life as a friend, just tremendous. I mean, I think about guys like Bobby Norton, who created the Bobby snacks. I mean, his whole first season, Bobby would have a snack ready, and he would take a photo of the snack and the episode on the TV, and I mean, it's just amazing. Then able to travel and actually have a Cracker Barrel lunch with Bobby Norton. So Bill Pavlik. We talk about magazines. Bill Pavlik is, they're on eBay. A lot of us have bought magazines from Mr. Magazine. Bill Pavlik is the doctor of magazines. I mean, this guy is the professor of magazines. Matter of fact, that could be a good name for him, Professor Pavlik. He is the boss. His collection, he's got it all, man. He's got it all. And the way he's got it organized, he is the best. And so tip of the cap to my good brother Bill Pavlik in the Bronx, holding it down. But again, all over the world, Jay-Z Flair was the first kind of Wrestler Weekly follower and fan, and shout out to him. And he's a fellow North Carolinian. He and his wife do a great job, and the Bojangles champion. Shout out to you, my friend. And I'm sure more people, if I didn't mention you, I'm not slighting you. I'm just a little emotional. The last episode of Wrestler Weekly Presents. And, before I get even more emotional, I'm going to flip through the mags and show you what we got for this week. I'm going to kick it off, man. And again, it's all random. Random selection. I think that's the best. I don't prepare anything. I just see the mag and let's roll. And so this is January of 1980, The Wrestler. This is a back cover, what we call a back cover magazine. And that comes from, if you remember the wrestling magazines, on the back cover, they would spotlight the wrestling albums. Wrestling album number 4, which in my book I call The White Buffalo. Took me years to find it. And then not only did I find it, but then I found one for Reggie. So then we had it, and then the goal was to then collect all of the individual magazines that were on the back cover, because all the back cover shots, those photographs, those little capsules there, they were shots of covers of magazines. And so this is one of them, signed by Harley Race and now double signed by Bob Backlund. And so then we had to get all the magazines. Then once we got all the magazines, we had to get all the magazines signed. And so we did that. And then once we got all the magazines signed, we were like, well, what's the next challenge? Well, take wrestling album number 4, The White Buffalo, and then try to get all of those signed. And so that's hanging on the wall back there in a frame. But we're competitive people, and we like to do that. Now this one, this one is double signed by the same wrestler. Now let me explain. Now, I wrote a little bit about this, meeting this guy, in my book. But Nature Boy Buddy Landale. Okay, I just did a deep dive into Buddy Landale back when he had not the Nature Boy blonde hair, but when he had the dark black hair, and he just had got on the scene at Mid-Atlantic in those early 80s. But it says here, to the pro wrestling store, you are the greatest. And this is Buddy Landale, 1998. Okay. And while I'm thinking about it, a lot of us get our magazines from Bud Carson. Shout out, my friend. He is the guru of wrestling mags and signed mags. But when I got this, and it's an 8x10, and I'm not a big fan of the 8x10s. I have a good collection of them. I don't necessarily go out and seek them. It has to be something really rare for me to get an 8x10, just because there could be so many of them out there, the amount of number. I like to try to find the rare items. And now you can take an 8x10 and make it rare depending on what signatures you add to it. Obviously, I've got one with David Von Erich signed, and certainly that would be rare anywhere. But so what I did was I had this, and it was signed right here where I just read the inscription. But I tell you what, I didn't trust it for whatever reason. A few years back, I just, and now, whoa, wow. I mean, Maddie and I have talked about this a lot lately, as has Reggie and I. And but wow, I mean, you talk about Fugazi land. I mean, you know, forget about Disneyland. How about Fugazi land? I mean, eBay, just be very careful. Here's my warning. There is so many fakes going around eBay right now. It is unbelievable. People have been able to fake the old Mid-Atlantic mags that I grew up with, and it's really embarrassing. It's disgusting. It's killing the collection business. And let me get on my soapbox here. I mean, I told Maddie the other day, I said, look, this one Mid-Atlantic mag, and I'm not going to tell you which one, but this particular one that we were talking about, I remember getting that at the matches, late 70s, high school football field, just on a regular table where you walk in with someone's taking the gate money, and on the table they had stacks of the Mid-Atlantic magazine, which were the kind of the program of the day for the territory. This was small town Virginia, and I got the magazine. Now later on, as you know, my dad threw it away. You can read all about that in my book, but they didn't throw it away. Actually, he burned it, but you can read about that. But here's the deal. It took me years, man, years to find that magazine. And the copy that I have was someone's personal collection, and man, it was dog-eared and ripped up and taped off, whatever. And I'm a comic book collector, so I don't really care much about the condition. I'm also a baseball card collector with New York Yankees cards. Don't really care much about the condition because I'm just trying to collect and put sets together. And I don't resell anything. But here's the problem. This magazine now is being, eBay, I'm getting alerts like almost daily now of these magazines, and they're mint fresh. And I'm talking mint fresh. And I mean not just like one or two, because I know there's certain collectors, and I know who they are, who have some of those. But when Les Thatcher, who was a guest on my show, talks about Jim Crockett telling him to just throw them away. I mean, they were throwing dumpsters, boxes of these things away. So that means there's not that many of them. But in today's technology, these people have gotten together and created this absolute fugazi fake, and it's killing the business. And we've got guys out there that are faking autographs and, again, killing the collectors like myself, like Maddie, like my brother, Mike, and Mike Parker, David Peck. I mean, be very, very careful. Be very, very careful with what you're getting now. It is just sad. If you don't get it in person, red flag. Now, I validate Bud Carson, whatever he's doing. Absolutely. Absolutely. But wow, be very careful. That's all I'm going to say. Now, back to the Buddy Landale story. So I didn't trust it for whatever reason. And so I actually asked Buddy, who was very good friends with my cousin, Tony. And Tony wrestled under the name TR Superstar in the West Virginia, Tennessee, Virginia area. But so I asked Buddy to sign it again, just just to be sure. So that's double signed by the same guy. This is the Rings Wrestling Magazine. Two of the great babyface WWF champions of all time, Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund. And yes, I had both of these guys sign this in person. So this was one that you can count on when you see a guy sign it. Double signed. Last week we talked about Dusty Rhodes and Superstar Billy Graham. How about Dusty Rhodes versus the the AWA champion, Nick Bockwinkel, double signed. I mean, this is as rare as it gets right here. And so very happy to have it in my collection. The Grappling Mag. I did a whole episode on the Grappling Mags versus the Posed Mags. And Maddie was my guest for that, so you can check that one out. Inside Wrestling, June of 1989, going back to the great summer of the trilogy between Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair. And this is Rick Steamboat wins Ric Flair's NWA belt, double signed by both wrestlers. And yes, I did a whole episode, 1 hour. I did an entire 1 hour episode of Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat. So much, there's so many things for you to go back and check out on YouTube. Share the videos and give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. How about wrestling's main event, March of '84? I talk about this in my book. It's double signed by Ric Flair, but it's also signed by Arn Anderson. No, this is not Arn Anderson, but I met Ric Flair once at a Gold's Gym in Hickory, North Carolina, and I didn't know Arn Anderson was going to be there. And so when Rick signed it, I just asked Arn to sign it as well. All right, we've come down to the final two. Harley Race, Bob Backlund, belt versus belt, double signed, the great matches that they had, and they had a great return, or a return match of the WWF title versus the NWA title. Those two belts on the line in Jacksonville, Florida, 1978. Great historical reference there. And now the last one, The Wrestler, April of '82. Double signed by two of the greatest world champions the NWA has ever seen. Both, I mean, to have one signature is one thing, but to have them double signed in both, and who would have ever thought of all the collection that this is the last mag to ever be shown on Wrestler Weekly Presents? Interesting. It is April of '82, The Wrestler. The title says how Jack Briscoe controls Ric Flair's championship destiny. It's double signed by Jack Briscoe and Ric Flair. It doesn't get much better than that, my friends. Take a moment to just let it sink in. I actually showcased this magazine in season 1 when I went through. Each episode was a different year. But we've come to the end, my friends. Wrestler Weekly presents. There'll be many more different titled shows and different formats that we're going to be doing. But I just want to say thank you to all of our friends, our fans, our followers, supporters of Wrestler Weekly and all the daily content that we put out, from Sunday's shout out and recognizing people that we appreciate, to the dream matches. I know a lot of you love the dream matches. To Monday, getting into used to be called the old Monday Mag memorabilia. But then we switched it to the Hot Mag when that phrase kind of took off in season 1 here. And then Tuesday with the Tuesday Takeaway and 2 for Tuesday, showcasing a couple different mags. And then Wednesdays, Wrestler Weekly, we started with Wrestler of the Weeks, and then that turned into Wednesday Wrestler Champs, showcasing the different champions that we love through Wrestler Weekly. And then we also would showcase a 24 project, which, that was one of those things where we would talk about 2 for Tuesdays, and then we would get into a situation where we would take 20 years and really look at how we showcase and how we compared wrestlers, champions that were 20 years apart. And then, Thursday, we always would go through the Throwback Thursday. We would talk about that, and we got into some rare programs and some classic material, some favorites segments that we did. We used to do some daily themes and monthly themes. Fridays with the Friday ratings, those the Inside Wrestling centerfolds and all those things that talked about the champions, and we would have a poll that we would go through and discuss, and then, would all culminate into Saturday's showcase, the show off Saturday, to be able to showcase just rare memorabilia and things that we would put together, and Reggie would go through all of his figures, his custom figures, along with the signed custom mags. And then who can forget Mike's commentary that we do on Saturdays, and everybody loves that. But there's so many things that are going to be coming back. Mike's talked about bringing his live show back, so something you can look forward to. But for here, we look back and we think about all the friends that we've had, from Nick McDaniel and Myron at Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I mean, they've Nick's been and Myron, they've been such great friends of mine, to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Stu Sachs reaching out and saying, hey, how about you put Harry Burkett on your show? I mean, as a kid growing up reading those magazines, all of a sudden you get a message from Stu Sachs to put Harry on. Oh, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we've had Bill Apter on the show. He kicked off season 3. We've had Brian Blair, old B. Brian Blair. It was a great episode that he was on. We've had Les Thatcher. We have had George South was a guest of Wrestler Weekly Presents. I mean, so many when you look back and think about the different people that have come through our lives. And I want to shout out to the Mid-Atlantic Gateway, because David Chappell, who's been a guest for at least 2 episodes, and we've had so many conversations that I don't know which one was an episode and which one wasn't at this point. But I just cannot thank you enough. 3 years of Wrestler Weekly, 4 seasons of Wrestler Weekly Presents, all comes down to this, and a phrase that I stole from Bob Caudle, who was the voice of my childhood. So I will say, until next time, fans, so long for now. VIP members, bonus episode time. Episode 10, Wrestler Weekly Presents 1983. This is the bonus episode. And I want to go through and show you what I promised you. There's the Ric Flair, 16 times signed on the belt. Here's the Harley Race, signed on the belt. He signed that at his wrestling school in St. Louis. Ric Flair signed this one in Alma, Georgia, which I gave the story in episode 10. So let's just go through. There's the Kerry Von Erich. I do have the certificate of authenticity. Kerry Von Erich, and Kevin Von Erich has also confirmed that that is Kerry's signature. There's the Dusty Rhodes, which I was able to meet him at the NWA Legends Fan Fest. What an honor to meet him and then to have the signature. He passed away about 7 months later, so just a rare one there. Jack Briscoe, this one he has signed a program, and it was perfect fit on the belt. That has also been certified. We'll skip a couple and I'll come back. There is Terry Funk, and he even signed at Hall of Fame 2008. I saw Terry Funk, met him at a fan fest and event in Asheboro, North Carolina, a couple years ago. Tommy Wildfire Rich. You know that Tommy was the first wrestler to sign this belt, and he made me buy a t-shirt before he would sign it. So that was the first time I'd ever met Tommy, and we laugh about it to this day. This is an interesting one. I'm sure I'll be showing this later on a regular episode, but this is Giant Baba. I got this one, had to get this one right from Japan and had to negotiate. He had signed his book, and I do have the copy of the book, but the signature fit perfect on the belt, and took me a while. I'd say a good 6-7 months of negotiation to get this and get it shipped over, but happy to have it on the belt. Now I'm going to go back. I had these three guys sign the belt for obvious reasons. Let me first start with Bill Apter. You can see his signature there on the side. Bill Apter, of course. Without Bill, my childhood is different because I wouldn't have the magazines, wouldn't fall in love with the belts, and then would not have this one. But right above Bill Apter, you can see that's Bob Caudle. Now, I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling before moving to Florida in 1981. So all of my childhood, late 70s and into 1980 and early 81, Bob Caudle, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. So I did have Bob sign it. And then right above, I tried to get this guy to sign it under Apter, and he just couldn't get the angle. So he said, I'm just going to sign it up here. Well, that's Tommy Young, referee, greatest ref of all time. And Tommy Young held this belt up many, many times, refereeing a lot of NWA World Title matches. So I thought it fitting to put Tommy Young on the belt. So there it is again. Recap: Kerry Von Erich, Dusty Rhodes, Jack Briscoe, Tommy Young, Bill Apter, Bob Caudle, Harley Race, Ric Flair, Terry Funk, Tommy Wildfire Rich, and the Giant Baba. So, thank you for being a part of VIP. Thank you for watching episode 10. And thank you for subscribing to YouTube and WrestlerWeekly.com. Have a great one.
Wrestler Weekly coming at you live. Tommy Wildfire Rich. The big debate. Old school, new school. Who cares? Wrestling Weekly, they bring you all the news.